the medical condition and health concerns. This situation has also raised some basic issues of financial and economic crisis, and we have been basically seeing reports and reading so many workings and research that we are the whole globe, the whole world is actually at the brink of economic crisis. We might face some recessions also in few countries, and also in distress. So in this scenario, I think that some of the people, not only some of the people but most of the people are concerned about their jobs, their job securities, and also about earning some extra income from, and to find some solutions where they can have some returns and profits. But most importantly also, it's that like their savings are depleting due to currency exchange rates, and also currency depreciations as well, and inflation rate as well. So all these factors have actually contributed in making the masses concerned about that how they can improve their situation, or at least if not improving, how they can basically sustain at the moment. And because most of the people are at the survival stage at this moment, so because of that, say they do not want some returns, but at least like they would like to basically make those returns work for them, so that like they will be able to sustain and be at the break-even point. And I think because of that, I have received so many requests. Alhamdulillah, we did our webinar previously, and it was a huge success. And we received so many responses from from our audience, and from our network, and from those people who participated in the previous programs, that we would like to hear about this topic. And that's why basically that we have organized this important issue. And this is very important is because that there are medium and small investors, or even if I would like to say they are not basically investors, but they are savers. Actually they have some savings, and they are concerned about that how basically they can save their savings from depleting. And due to that, I was thinking that online digital platforms is another thing which technology has to offer to us. And we have seen that like there are so many online digital platforms for different purposes. For investment side, we have stock markets, we have commodity trading platforms, we have crowdfunding platforms, we have P2P lending platforms, and also we have also exchanges are also coming on board. And then crypto assets are also being exchanged on different exchanges. Although like so many people are concerned about the crypto assets also, and their authenticity, uh, and they're concerned about legal and regulatory requirements. But uh, all in all, albeit there are so many things which basically have contributed in the rise of digital platforms. And so then I thought that it would be very good to share some knowledge from the market experts, and they have immense experience, so that like we can share this with the masses through this platform. And we can basically educate, or basically spread awareness about crowdfunding platforms. And also, most importantly, being a Muslim, and being from the countries where majority of the Muslims reside, we have seen that their concern was that like so many that whether it is Sharia compliant or not. So many people have concern about whether stock market investing in a stock market is permissible or not permissible, investing in crowdfunding platforms is permissible or not permissible. So inshallah we are going to cover also this aspect of Sharia, this aspect as well. And we are going to discuss about Sharia principles, and Sharia principles and venue, Islamic or Sharia compliant investment venues as well. So this is the motive of our program. And like I touched earlier, that many people also talked about, were asking about crypto assets and the exchanges and how do they work, and they are pretty much interested. So and our previous program was also on the uh, crypto assets during the pandemic time, and is it the right time for them and how to look at them. So although like we are not actually advising or promoting any specific crypto asset or the market itself for those specifically who do not have enough knowledge, but there are so many people who would like to know about it from the research point of view, from the Sharia point of view, and from the side that whether in the future it would it be a viable solution for different problems which we are facing now or not. For example, like the process of tokenization is getting popularity, not because of crypto assets, but so many people have seen that the transfer of value is very easy to do, and through tokenization. And tokenization process covers basically different assets. It's stock market, it's commodities, it's currencies, and also different types of illiquid assets, which we were thinking that it would be very difficult to trade them with this liquidity and with this speed. But tokenization process can basically do that also. So for that, we are very happy that we have designed a program, and we are going to launch it soon. And then we have already prepared for everything that and we have the title of the program is basically Crypto World Demystified. So inshallah, it will be in the public domain, and marketing will soon be started, and the information you will also have about it soon. That we have designed this program for those who would like to know about it, and would like to discuss various aspects of it. Although, and those who are comfortable in investing or trading or saving their some of their assets or property, then they will be able to do that as well. So this is basically the program for beginners, for intermediate, and for experts as well, because for people who are already doing some trading, they will be able to know the Sharia aspects of it, and they will be know how to do the technical analysis and fundamental analysis. So inshallah, we have already designed this program, and then it is already ready. Inshallah, we are going to launch it soon. So please stay tuned for that, and then we will see that like how we are very hopeful that it will be a very good program for those who would like to know about this space. So now coming back to our theme of the program, which is about alternative investment platforms during the pandemic time. I think that it is very crucial because now during the lockdown, most of the things are basically accelerated towards being digitalized and also online. So, and
Oh,
inshallah,
fuck me, daddy. Fuck me so hard with the big PP. Fuck me, fuck my asshole. Oh yeah, my asshole's so itchy. I took a massive shit, and it's so dirty. I bet.
sorry, I think that there is some uh, problem in the connection. Anyway, so without further ado, I think that I would like to invite
You would like to fuck my
Mr.
ass.
Umar Munshi for his presentation.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Farouk. Am I clear? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but sorry, before that there was some disruption, so I got basically got confused.
Distracted. It's okay.
Please forgive me. Brother Umar Munshi, he's basically the co-founder of Ethisco, a very good Muslim brother and a friend. He's from Singapore, and he is one of the pioneers in Islamic crowdfunding platforms and also SMEs platform. And he has recently he told me the good news that they have got the first equity crowdfunding platform license from the SEC, and he has now the Ethysco is basically spreading in so many jurisdictions, including Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Dubai, and hopefully in other jurisdiction with which Brother Munshi would basically share with us later. And so please, Brother Umar Munshi, please go ahead. And it's been a very great honor to have you in this webinar.
Right. Thank you very much for the introduction. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone from wherever you are. I think there's quite a spread in terms of the location of all the different attendees and participants. So, Alhamdulillah, it's a really great opportunity for me to share with you some of our experiences and insights, specifically in this case for investment-focused crowdfunding. I will be sharing my screen. I think you need to enable me. It's my other account, not the one with the video. All right, so while I wait to share the screen, Alhamdulillah, I have a short period of time to share a lot of different things. And one thing I wanted to focus on is actually the nature and the form of Islamic crowdfunding. And at the same time also, how that ties into Islamic finance, not only in terms of the Sharia principles, but also in terms of the Sharia objectives. So the objectives part is very, very important. I believe that especially in a time of crisis, it goes back to the fundamentals and the ethics of how we circulate wealth and circulate funds in the economy. And in this case, what's important is the real economy. So something that's very significant about crowdfunding is that it is a platform that essentially matches funds direct to the real economy, right? So that's one key defining characteristic of crowdfunding, P2P investment crowdfunding. Right? I hope I can share the slide so it's easier. Or you can share it, maybe. You have it as well, Doctor. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I'll just continue as if I have the slides.
Would you like to share? Would you like to share it from your side, or should we basically put it on the screen?
You can, if I can share it, it'll be easier, so I can navigate. But if it's difficult,
yeah.
then you
so
can
I think
share
that please go ahead and share your screen with the audience.
I can. You need to enable it.
Okay. Yeah. It's already enabled.
I still can. But this has happened before in other instances as well, when I had Zoom calls. So maybe if you don't mind, you can just share it.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Okay.
screen. Okay.
Wait.
So
we will basically unlock the feature, and you will be able to share your screen.
Sure. Try and take the Ethys one, the one with the logo.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay. So given that there's not much time, I think I'll just continue to highlight some of the important parts that I wanted to highlight in this presentation without the visual aid. The visual aid can give you a better representation, but I'll share it, inshallah, after this with everybody. So what is crowdfunding? It is a way to match funds into the real economy. All right? And that's very important. Instead of going to different types of instruments or products or different financial markets or financial products, basically, the financial economy. So this is not related to that in the sense that your money passes through the platform and goes into the projects or the companies. And the range of crowdfunding can go from one extreme, pure charity, all the way to equity and investment, and even hybrids in between. Now, what I will share today is about investment crowdfunding. Yeah, so think about it like any other platform, for example, an e-commerce platform that you use to shop. It matches buyers and sellers.
Brother. So yeah, you are basically you have been given the right to basically share your screen. So if you go to that button, which is share screen, on the lower bottom
Yes.
panel. So from there, you can basically share
Yep.
your screen.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with this, but it's not working. So there's something wrong with the system, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still not working. Host disabled participant screen sharing. So I can't do anything about that. Yeah. I think it's okay if you can flash it, that's fine. It's only a few slides and not much time. So just interrupt me whenever you need to, yeah, Doctor? Okay, so I'll continue for everyone else, inshallah, while we sort out the technical issues. Now, as I said, for investment crowdfunding, there's essentially two types. The first type is called lending or P2P, or financing from the Islamic point of view, where money goes to provide a certain facility over a period of time with a certain fixed or targeted or projected returns. So that's P2P crowdfunding or P2P lending. In most jurisdictions, they call it lending. And this is the biggest aspect or type of crowdfunding. Globally, it's gone into the hundreds of billions already. And in a country like Indonesia, it's really gone up to 10 billion US dollars. This is the amount of funds that have gone through platforms or passed through platforms to projects in the real world or companies in the real world. Yep. And the second type is equity crowdfunding, where it's essentially a primary issuance of shares, like going to IPO on the stock market. I have a company, and for these fintech platforms, typically the focus is SMEs. There's also the regulatory limits. So for example, in Malaysia, we have an equity crowdfunding approval. Inshallah, should be launching in the next 2 months. I wanted to share some things about that. But do go to our website, atheist.co, and from there you can navigate to the different platforms. Okay, great. All right. So for equity crowdfunding is a primary issuance of shares. As an SME, I go to a platform to go for like a listing of like a public listing or an issuance of my shares to the public. So let's say I want to raise $1 million. I go to a platform, and based on my valuation, the platform, assuming it approves me, then I go on the platform and then I issue shares to the public in exchange for capital. Right? So the public then gets direct or indirect shares in that company. Okay, Alhamdulillah, we have the screen here. So I've already gone through these parts. We'll go to the next slide, please. Okay. Yep, I already mentioned some of this. I think it's okay, inshallah. Right, I want to jump maybe, if you don't mind, about 3 slides down. Some more, it's okay. We can skip these parts. It's okay, can skip some more. Thank you. Some more, down to the verticals. I think I want to focus on that a little bit, because I'm not sure how much time we have left.
There is a sound of children coming from whom I think all
this one, yes. Oh, that's probably for me. Yeah. Hope you don't mind. Okay. So the verticals just now, if you could. Yeah. So here today, the session is about how to invest through crowdfunding platforms. You know, what opportunities are and what's the Sharia perspective. So I spent some time talking about the introduction. Inshallah, there's a lot of material online you can read on your own, or videos even. And essentially, the difference is that you are investing in projects. In the past, when you invest in projects, it's through friends, relations, family, or for larger investors, they go in small groups to invest in projects. So here, we invest through platforms, and you can diversify your investment to spread out to many small. And these are some of the examples. This is what we intend to do in Malaysia and our timeline, but it also serves as an indication to you of what's happening in the market right now, especially in Indonesia, where we are very familiar with Indonesia. We've been there for a few years. Now we are in Kuala Lumpur. We're just about to start. Yeah. So in Indonesia, the P2P crowdfunding industry has grown very rapidly, mostly in the SME part of things. And that also combines together with consumer financing, because for P2P financing there, you actually lend money to people through platforms, right? So that has grown very fast in Indonesia. When it comes to the Sharia crowdfunding, in Indonesia is also the leader right now. They have about 50, 60 fintech, Islamic fintech companies or Muslim-focused companies. And out of that, I believe there's about 10 P2P. So you can see they have agriculture and SME as well as property. So you as an investor from anywhere in the world, essentially can invest into projects in Indonesia through all these different platforms. Now, in Malaysia, this is our what we see to be the opportunity. And I think in many countries now, because of the COVID situation, the landscape has changed, right? And our points here relate to that landscape a little bit. For example, agriculture is now an opportunity as well, because it is a basic necessity. Everybody needs to have security over the food supply. So financing farmers, investing in projects to process food and all these things. These are opportunities that the government will want to invest in. And there's also an opportunity for private investors to come in as well. So individually, if you were to fund a project, right, let's say it's a 20 million ringgit or a $5 million project, and you want to invest and you have $10,000 or $1,000, clearly you're not going to be able to convince that company to take your money because you don't have enough. But when you pool it through a platform and the people come in with the same understanding and the same terms, and they invest in a project, then you can collectively have enough money to participate in a project. And that's what essentially we do in crowdfunding, right? Now, at the bottom, in the third one here, property, you can see. Oh, no. I hope it's not. Okay, it's not. Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so for property, we have a few examples. We are one example in Indonesia. We focus on property crowdfunding, developing social houses for low-income families, providing funds to developers, usually bridging or mezzanine financing, a portion of the cost of the project, and then from there is a profit. Yeah? Typically from an istisna contract where you buy and sell units, or from a musyarakah where you come in as a joint venture partner. Now, in the UK, there's also another platform called Yielders, which you can check out. Yield, getting an income, YIELDERS.co.uk. So these are a few of the prominent platforms. And in other countries as well, there are other platforms that also do Islamic focused crowdfunding. Yeah. And I want to share a little bit about our experience with all of you. You have to go back to the slide. I don't know which slide is it. Let me see. Yeah, just the slide number 7, if you don't mind, right on top. Okay, so to share with you what we have done in this space, we have basically this one. Yes, thank you. We have basically matched retail investors, that means normal people. Our project range minimum is about, sometimes can be as low as $500, but typically is about $1,000, $2,000 or $5,000 as an investor to come into a project. So it ranges. And alhamdulillah, what we've done is that we have funded about 40 plus projects to build, you can see some numbers here, 9,000 houses in Indonesia, and provided returns of about double digits, typically over 9 months or 24 months. So these are property development projects, right? And alhamdulillah, there's a lot of room for scale because institutions are also very keen in this type of projects. And now, alhamdulillah, we have a license there. So we're starting to bring in institutional investors as well as continue with the retail or smaller investors, alhamdulillah. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Hope you don't mind. My daughter is a family time at this time. And I think I only have a few minutes, so I will wrap up quickly. The next one, can you show it, please? So I want to show how, in the next slide, we have the trends of where investors come from. The average investor in our platform invests about $4,000 to $6,000 on average, but there's a lot of small investors, and there's also a large group of big investors. So the average is in between. You can see here, most of the investors investing into Indonesia come from Singapore, but as this year, this data is last year, for this year, actually more than half of the funds have come from the Middle East as well as Europe. So it seems that people in other regions are getting more attracted to Indonesia and Southeast Asia. So we believe for Malaysia as well. And there's another chart here which I will skip. Can we go on to the next slide? Back to the verticals. Yeah. So I will end on the verticals, the slide that we were on earlier. SME, agriculture, property, and wakaf. Yeah, the previous slide. Right, so this will be my last slide. So essentially, thank you. So essentially, crowdfunding is an opportunity for small investors, large investors, and also institutional investors, as well as government, because we are basically an ecosystem, just like how Uber and Grab and all these ride transport companies today are working with government because they are essential. When we provide financing through platforms to SMEs and small businesses, then naturally all the different stakeholders will start to come in. So this is an opportunity for small investors to participate as well. Normally, it's difficult to get into certain types of projects, but one thing I must stress is that the risk is typically high, especially if you're investing in businesses with no assets or no collateral. So you can lose potentially your capital, right? So sometimes some people prefer asset-backed investments. Yeah. The last point I will share is on Wakaf, and then I'll end for today. So Wakaf essentially is, I believe, a huge opportunity for the Muslim world to activate our assets. And from there, we can fund these assets through investment and through charity and create productive activity, and from there create profit. So I think I'll end for that at this point. I hope it has been useful. And sorry for the noise, it's coming from my house actually. And I hope you heard what I said. We will share the slides with you. And inshallah, from there, please check out our website, check out my profile online, and I'll be happy to communicate with you, inshallah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah, good presentation, Brother Umar. And hope we are very sorry for taking up some of your family time, but inshallah it will be good for the rest of the world and Ummah, inshallah. So if we are just going to the question and answer session now, inshallah, quickly, without further ado. So if you have any question, you may raise the hand, or you can type it in the Zoom chat, so that like we can basically directly divert it towards Brother Umar Munshi.
Yeah, I have a question. First of all, that what kind of it was an excellent presentation, and what kind of returns we are getting on these investments?
So for Indonesia, what we do is social housing bridging finance. Is typically close to a year, 9 months, 10 months, this is the shortest period, up to 24 months or even longer. So on an annualized kind of calculation, is typically 9% to 12, 13%. It depends on the project timeline. So we give a projected timeline of, for example, 11 to 13 months. Yeah, and the returns is 15%. So it depends on how long the project takes to complete, and then you will get your same returns of 15%.
Okay, we have seen that in this COVID crisis, the countries and the places where they have sufficiency of food and things like that in investment, what do you think that in future prospect, how are the prospect for the investment, especially in the food sector? The reason is that we see that in after COVID, that whoever country and places where they are sufficient in food, they will have an upper edge on other part of the world.
Okay. Yes. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, crowdfunding has the opportunity to go into different types of sectors and industries and fund different kinds of things. So in this case, agriculture is definitely something that's already being funded by crowdfunding platforms in Indonesia, I think in parts of Africa as well. And right now in the Middle East, there are a number of platforms looking at food security, import and export of food. So it is already started, but I think it's not yet so significant. Inshallah, is growing. For Islamic in Indonesia, there's a few. You can see, maybe I'll type in later. As iGrow.Asia in Indonesia. There's another one called Tani Hub. I mean, I'll type out the names there. So what they do is they provide financing as to the supply chain of food. For example, they buy from the farmers and they sell to the retailers. And they do e-commerce concept. So it's direct buying and selling like Alibaba. And then they provide the financing through that kind of environment. Yeah, so that's one example I can share.
Okay, we have one question from our participants, that are there any crowdfunding platforms, especially like Sharia compliant crowdfunding platforms available in Africa. If you have heard any of them working and or any successful story, please.
Sure. Yeah. So the challenge for crowdfunding today is that it is generally known as a regulated activity. So in the past, when we first started, when FIS first started, for a number of years, we were doing crowdfunding, but there was no license available. Right. So what we did was we just matched the investor to the project. We did not handle the money transaction. You invested directly. But now it's licensed and regulated in some countries and not yet licensed or regulated in some countries. So that's a big problem, I think. I believe, yeah, I'm not an expert on Africa, but I think a lot of countries there have still not yet issued regulations. I'm aware that Morocco is supposed to have one by now. I'm aware also that South Africa has been looking at it. I think Nigeria has some regulations out. Yeah, but so you can check it out online. I'm not sure. We actually did one project in South Africa, Alhamdulillah, as a pilot, successful cycle, invested and paid out with profits, Alhamdulillah, I believe on time or 2 weeks late or something like that. But then we had to stop because the regulator said, we're going to regulate this. So you cannot operate until we have the regulations and you apply for it. And if you get it, then you can continue. So I don't think it's out yet. And in any case, right now, we are focused on Southeast Asia for our company. We are focused on Malaysia and Indonesia, and we're just starting in Malaysia. So there's a lot of room for us to do a lot of things here, inshallah. So our focus now will be to get investment from the rest of the world to good projects in Malaysia and Indonesia, and or raise funds from Malaysia for global companies, potentially. You can set up something in Malaysia and you can do an issuance on our platform. One thing I did not add earlier is that Alhamdulillah Securities Commission Malaysia has increased our maximum that we can fund from 5 to 10 million ringgit, which is about 2.3 million US dollars. That's the maximum we can fund per company with some criteria. And secondly, we can do secondary market transactions. That means your shares can then be traded or sold on our platform. So these are all new innovations that's just starting and it's still very new.
Okay, perfect. Another question we have, which is, I think, very quite interesting, that what is your experience in terms of lending and investing precisely with regards to customer preference and satisfaction? So the thing is like, how satisfied or are the customers, or what are their preferences in terms of lending and investment? What is your experience?
Okay, so our experience with our investors is that, Alhamdulillah, we are open to everyone, Muslim and non-Muslim, but everything, of course, is inshallah Sharia compliant. And we try to also be Sharia based in the sense that we have impact and a positive outcome for our society. So for us, a lot of our investors by name are Muslim, although there are some non-Muslim names who turn out to be Muslims, like this one, a Chinese gentleman with a Chinese sounding name who's actually British living in the Middle East, and he's Muslim, right? So we wouldn't know who's Muslim, who's not, but in terms of name, there's a lot of Muslims, and when we do surveys, a lot of them are looking for what they consider to be Sharia compliant investment opportunities. Because some of them know that stocks and shares can be halal, but they prefer not to. They told us directly, we prefer not to invest in stocks and shares because there's some percentage for allowance or this and that, and they're not comfortable with it. So a lot of them are also savvy and high income or high net worth investors. So alhamdulillah, I see this trend happening, and they are looking to invest in projects, usually not only Sharia compliant, they also like it when there's social impact, but they are quite technical in terms of looking at currency exchange loss when you do the transactions, currency fluctuations, and also some of them are concerned about assets and collateral and all their legal rights, which is all fair and justified. So alhamdulillah, they are very interested in Indonesia so far. That's our area of exposure, especially in the housing projects. That's what we've been doing. But right now, there's a bigger appetite, I think, for short-term projects as well. Yeah. Last thing I can add is that although there's a lot of challenges today economically for everyone, there's also an increase. There's a lot of interest also for social funds like Cash Wakaf or Qard Hasan. This kind of financing is social motives is very much needed today, and I think there are people who don't mind putting in a small amount to support this kind of financing. So this is what I see right now in the market.
So we have one last question for you. Is that like, what do you think that how during this pandemic time and due to the COVID-19 and coronavirus, how you see that the digital platforms or crowdfunding specifically will be affected?
Okay, where was the question again?
Okay.
How is crowdfunding affected by COVID, right?
Yeah, so this is basically the last question from my side. So I would like to be interested in the sense that how do you think that in the future, how this current situation will pave the way for the crowdfunding platforms and digital platforms?
Okay, sure. So one thing I can share is that it really depends also on how the banking system moves forward. If the banking system, Islamic banking or conventional banking, is providing enough liquidity and services, there are less gaps, then I guess it will be similar to last time, although the nature of the businesses and so on will change. But at the same time, if the banks are changing their behavior, then some market gaps will be created, in addition to the existing market gaps that are already there in many, many countries. So I view that, for example, agriculture financing, yeah, that's definitely one aspect. Investors who are looking for returns will invest a lot in property because they want to hedge against the losses. And I believe also that for things like data-based investing, if I can phrase it that way, meaning we, for example, working with e-commerce platforms to fund their vendors, working with food delivery companies to fund their restaurants, because the data of their transactions is all known and clear. So if we can fund this kind of businesses, it will be much safer because we come in with all the data. So this is what I see will happen. And typically banks don't provide financing to this kind of level, right? So inshallah, it will be very good opportunity, not only opportunity to make money, but also opportunity to help out the economy to recover again.
Okay. Jazakallah khairan. Thank you so much, Brother Omar Munshi, for your time and also for your insights. I think that we have few questions as well, but due to the shortage of time, either we can take them offline, or maybe we'll be try if there will be a time at the end of the session, then maybe we can basically try to answer them, inshallah. So without further ado, I would like to move to our second speaker, Mufti Ehsan Waqar Sahab. So he is with us online. So Jazakallah khairan. If you would like to have, if you would like to say something, then please do go ahead, Brother Omar Munshi. Before
just thank you. Yeah, just thank you to everyone. Thank you for organizing it. I know there was some disruption, but we just ignore that. And inshallah, I hope there's benefit for everybody. And I'm looking forward to listen to Mufti as well. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you so much. So now moving on to our second speaker, Mufti Sahab, Mufti Ehsan Waqar Sahab. He is the CEO and director of ISAC, which is Ehsan Sharia Advisory Consultancy Firm in Pakistan. And he is a famous Sharia scholar and has a very vast experience in Islamic finance, particularly with banks and financial institutions. So, and he had been before, he had been also with the Securities Exchange Commission Pakistan and Central Bank of Malaysia. He has also worked with the Central Bank of Malaysia. Central Bank of Pakistan, which is SBP. So inshallah, we will be having insights from Mufti Ehsan Waqar Sahab.
Thank you very much, Farooq, and a very warm welcome and assalamu alaikum. I'll just start away with my presentation, and that is, if we have opportunity to have surplus funds with us, our savings, especially in these times, and we would like to go and invest in capital market. So what are the basic criteria? Is it allowed from the Sharia perspective that we go and invest in capital market and stock exchange and buy some scripts and stock different companies? There must be criteria for doing this. So generally, the scholars have allowed to participate and invest in stock exchange and buying stocks. But there are some parameters and criteria and standards that has been set, and there are differences in opinions as well in different jurisdictions. Some of the scholars are very stringent and they do not allow to invest in any such companies that is involved with any sort of non-Sharia compliant activities. Similarly, as we go further down with the screening criteria, we will come to know what are the opinions of different scholars and what are the different indexes and screening criteria available in different jurisdictions and offered by different group of people or scholars. The first very important part, whenever one feels like investing in capital market, he has to find out that what is the nature of the business activity. If the nature of the business activity is nothing in conflict with the Sharia principles, then it becomes the very first stage to go further ahead and screen out the particular company, their balance sheets and their income statements. The first thing which is very important to know that at this point of time, it is not an ideal capital market where you can find companies which are ideally or 100% Sharia compliant, because elements have been available, especially in the modern terms of business and exchanges.
Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Mufti Sahab, one thing is that some people are saying that like your voice is not clear, it's breaking, number one. And number two, if you are sharing your slides, then you have to turn on the share screen option.
If you can, you have my presentation. If you can share it from your end, that would be wonderful.
It would be better if you share your screen, because then you will be able to control it as well according to your speech.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better?
Let us see. Yes, we can see your presentation. Perfect.
Right. Okay. So the first thing which I was the Sharia, the Sharia permissibility. Companies' activities are Sharia compliant, but the constraint is that modern business practices and involvement of interest and riba, that is a point of concern for all the scholars. And usually the scholars are not very much comfortable. Here there are three different views while doing investment in capital market. Most of the some of the scholars, they have they have an opinion that they don't allow to participate or invest in such companies who are involved with any sort of non-Sharia compliant activity. While majority of the scholars, they do allow, but they have imposed certain criteria, certain restrictions to filter out certain companies that are more non-Sharia compliant than the other ones. So if we move forward and we see what are the basic principles, just to have a fair idea that what are the basic prohibitions that Sharia has imposed in terms of non-Sharia compliance. The very first thing is riba, interest, and I think so most of the participants are very well aware of what is the interest. The second thing is the gambling activity. Anything which involves gambling, a zero-sum game sort of a thing, that the benefit of one is at the cost of the loss of the other participant. The third thing is the excessive risk-taking, that is an ambiguity or uncertainty happening in the main transaction element. The fourth thing is you providing or distributing services or products that contains liquor or that is made up of pork or non-zabiha items. And similarly, there are some other activities like pornography or tobacco or things like that. So these are just the basic principles. But when we go and do the screening, there are many other criteria which are involved. The third thing is the main principle while making any investment is that there should be justice. There should not be any sort of an injustice in terms of taking benefit or exploiting the exploiting the counterparties. It should be very transparent, fair, and there should be no misrepresentations. There should be an element of risk, and that which legitimates the reward. It should not be that a guaranteed sort of an arrangement where the reward is guaranteed 100%. So yes, we mitigate the risk with different tools, but the risk element should be there in the transaction. The second thing is the various criteria that have been developed by the scholars, which says that whether this crypto stock is eligible for investments or not. There are three main screening criteria. One is offered by Dow Jones, Islamic Market Indices. The second one here in Pakistan, the Mizan Islamic Market Index criteria, that is known as KMI 30. And the third one is the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. They've also issued a criteria for screening the stocks. We would just have a fair comparison, and while doing the comparison, I will also explain the screening methodology. The first thing, as I told you, is important that the nature of business, the business itself, the core activity of the business should be Sharia compliant, nothing in conflict with the Sharia principles. If a company is involved in tobacco, liquor business, or it's involved in some entertainment which is not Sharia compliant, or it is involved in pornography or things like that, then it is not allowed by the Sharia to invest in such companies. So the core business should be Sharia compliant. Now there is another question that yes, the core business of the company, say it's an automobile company which manufactures automobiles, but during the financial period, they have at times surplus funds available with them, which they place in a non-Sharia compliant avenue. So the core business of the company is very much permissible from the Sharia perspective. But what happens that there is an element of investment coming in, there is a return coming in on their surplus funds from a non-Sharia compliant avenue. Or they have also made an investment activity, a treasury activity, that they with the surplus fund for a long term available, they have gone into a capital market and bought shares of a company which is non-Sharia compliant. So in that terms, what would be the stance? So basically, we would ignore that part, and that is filtered out in the second and the further screening criteria. To what extent that is allowed and to what extent that is barred from the Sharia principles. The second thing is the total debt to the asset. So this is the debt which is based on interest. Naturally, when the company operates, they do borrow money and they leverage themselves either from financial institutions or by floating their shares to the general public. If they acquire those funds from an institution on a base of interest, so such interest-based debts will be compared and will be analyzed from the total assets. If the total debt to the total assets should be something around 33%. Now there's a difference. Usually the Mizan index, they say that we compare this total debt to total assets, while Dow Jones compares it with the total debt, which has been trading for the last 24 months on an average market capitalization. So they basically compare the average 24-month debt with the market capitalization, and that should be less than 33%. That means that if they have borrowed money, and if we take the ratio, the market capitalization, their participation in the market, if that comes out to be less than 33%, yes, that is permissible to go and invest. Whereas if it is 33 or beyond 33, then it is not allowed. While the Mizan index says that we take the total debt of this debt again it's the interest bearing debt. And we compare it with the total assets. And the total assets, if that comes out less than 37%, then it is permissible to invest in those companies. Otherwise, the Sharia prohibits investing in such companies. AUFI says that the total debts to market capitalization, they don't go for an average of trailing 24 months average market capitalization. Rather, they when the accounts are published, at that point of time, the market capitalization is assessed. And if that is less than 30%, yes, it is permissible. Otherwise, it is not permissible. The third criteria for screening the shares is a non-compliant investment to trailing 24 months average market capitalization ratio. This means that if the company has invested in such companies which is non-Sharia compliant, as I explained in the very first nature of business. Here we take that company, yes, that company's core business is Sharia compliant, but yes, they have invested in an avenue which is non-Sharia compliant. We have to look into that their investment to the total asset ratio should not be greater than 33%. 33 or 33 greater than 33%. Anything less than 33%, yes, that will be acceptable from the Sharia perspective. There is a normal question coming in general public's mind that why is it so that they have allowed 33% or less than 33% and something which is equal to 33 or beyond 33 that is not allowed? That means that there is a compromise on Sharia. No, that is based on the basically the hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that which makes qaleel and kaseer. So everything which makes something qaleel or that is exorbitant or that is significant, that is barred from the Sharia concept. And looking at the current situation of the markets throughout the world, global situation is that ideally we won't find any script or any company which is not involved in any manner from a non-Sharia compliant activity. So because of there is another standard which is applied here that is known as umum balwa. And umum balwa is that generally people cannot escape that problem, that issue. So because of that, the scholars have allowed and they have marked a bench. They have created a benchmark of 33%. The fourth thing which comes into the screening criteria is the receivable. Dow Jones says it's accounts receivable, and again it is a 24-month average market capitalization. If that is that ratio comes below 33%, then it is permissible to invest in such a company. Otherwise, it is not. Whereas KMI index says illiquid assets. What is liquid and illiquid assets? Liquid assets are basically cash and cash equivalent to cash. So anything which is illiquid, which is not cash or which is fixed assets, plants, machineries, and other stuff, buildings, lands, something like that. So anything on that balance sheet, if that the illiquid asset to the total asset is less than 25%, yes, then it is permissible and you can trade in such stocks. Whereas UFI says it is 33%. The fifth criteria to screen out a stock is that non-compliant income to total revenue. Because of those non-Sharia compliant activities, the investment made in such avenues which is non-Sharia compliant, if the income generated from those sources, those avenues is less than 5%, it still becomes permissible to invest. But there is a further step ahead, that what should one do when he has acquired or invested in a company which has a source of income from a non-Sharia compliant avenue. In that case, what happens that there is a purification of the income that needs to be done. Again, there's a difference between the scholars. Some of the scholars ask that it is the responsibility of the company to ensure and purify that income, and some says that it is the responsibility of the shareholder to purify it from the dividend. KMI index also puts another criteria, that is net liquid asset per share should be less than the market price per share. Assuming that the cash and the receivables and the cash equivalents are 100 rupees and the market price of the share is also 100 rupees, so then it is not permissible to trade at a premium or at a discount. It has to be traded at par. But if the market price is greater than the net liquid asset, then it is not permissible. Or if it is less than the net liquid asset, even then it is not permissible. These are the criteria basically. So anyone interested in investing in capital market has to take these criteria, these filters to screen out, and those companies which fall in the permissible amber, then the individual can go and invest in that, in such avenues. I think so. I've concluded, and it was a little brisk review of the screening criteria, but because of the shortage of time, I would end here, and I would open the floor if someone has any questions.
Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you so much, Mufti Saab, for your enlightening and insightful presentation. And now we can open the floor for any question and answer from the participants. So if you have any question, please write it in the chat, or maybe like you can raise the hand, and then basically I can come back to you and open the mic for you, so that like you can ask the question in audio directly. But while we are waiting for the questions, I think that I have one question to start with. Okay, we have a question. Can you please mention the hadith again? I think that the participant is referring to the hadith which you mentioned about athuluth wa thuluthu kathir.
No. Yes, that is the reason.
So if you have mentioned it in your slide or somewhere, so please can you
no,
go
I
back
haven't
to
mentioned.
Okay.
No, I haven't mentioned that in my slide. But yes, that is the hadith that when a certain benchmark was placed in front of the Prophet, and he said that this is too much. So that was basically the hadith, and from that we extract that anything which is ample or significant should be left out and considered in totality.
Okay, perfect. Mufti Saab, I would also like to ask, like, there are a confusion among the people that there is a confusion, famous confusion that investing in a stock market is all gambling. And that is why like people are reluctant to basically invest in the stock market or even using any other digital platform. So what do you think that how Sharia guides us in terms of like avoiding gambling or speculation, pure speculation, and rather going to the business and trading activity?
Yes, this is a general question, usually bothers normally every individual, I suppose. They think that investing in capital market or participating in stock exchange is something like doing a gambling. We need to understand the mechanism, what is happening in the capital market basically. It is basically the companies, they invite individuals, companies, institutions to participate in their, as their equity holders, capital, they bring in capital and become the shareholder of that company. Now that shareholding varies from the period which we basically what you invest. If we are investing for a longer period and we are trying to reap the dividend and the profit earned by the company and enjoy those profits only, that is classified according to the accounting standards, or that is held till maturity, HTM. In that case, the basic concern of the investor is to be a partner in that company, be a shareholder, and only enjoy the benefits from the dividends. Whereas some of the other investors, they might be interested in holding that share for a shorter period, and they would be looking into a capital gain scenario. They would invest when the stock prices are low, and when the company starts performing well and the prices goes up, they want to exit out of their shareholding. So that is another sort of an investment activity. And that is usually, you could say that available for trade or available for sales, right? So in that scenario, again, there is a perspective that people do invest with that intention, make a capital gain. So that is also very much permissible. Speculation, if you talk about speculation, so speculation itself is not impermissible, because every business, when you enter into doing any business, you always create a feasibility report, whether it is feasible, viable to invest in that venture or not. And once you do that, basically you're making assumptions, you're speculating that yes, while starting off that business, at a certain point of time, I'll go and earn profits. So that speculation is very much halal, and that is very much permissible. What is impermissible is that when the uncertainty comes in the main transaction, like if you're making a sale transaction and you misrepresent something, or you don't know what you're selling, or there's an ambiguity in the price, or there's an uncertainty in the availability of that commodity, which is the underlying asset. That uncertainty, that gharar, that sort of a unknown factor in the transaction itself, that is impermissible. Whereas if the outcome of that transaction, that is, again, that is, you cannot guarantee the outcome. Once if you start guaranteeing the outcome that yes, you end up making a profit and I guarantee that, so then again it becomes impermissible from the Sharia perspective. So the risk element has to be there, and the main transaction, if the main transaction, the elements of that transaction is there, if there is some uncertainty on that part, then that becomes impermissible and which is prohibited, and that is known as gharar.
Okay, perfect. We have a few more questions actually, and so to start with, there is one person asking that what are the Sharia principles for a exchange traded fund of gold? So is it permissible to buy such kind of units of fund, or what are the basic Sharia principles for that?
Right.
Exchange traded funds of gold.
The first thing which needs to be addressed while trading in gold or silver is that the possession itself. Once you buy the commodity on the exchange, if you're getting the possession of that commodity, especially in terms of gold and silver, then it is permissible to trade. Again, what would be the price? People have different opinion about the currency, the paper currency. They have different opinion, the scholars. Some of the scholars, they view that the same principles apply to these paper currencies as it is applicable in gold and silver. While trading with gold and silver, when you go and trade in gold and silver, and you exchange gold against silver, gold against gold, then it has to follow a certain principle which has been laid in the hadith, that it has to be equal and hand in hand. So they assume that this paper note or paper currency is very similar to the gold, and it has just replaced the physical form. Rather, it is backed by gold and silver. So whenever you're trading in gold with the currency, it has to be hand in hand, and that has to be in equality. Whereas some of the scholars say that this is not actually equivalent to gold and silver, rather these are fiat money. These are not the actual intrinsic metallic valued metals that was expressed in the hadith. Rather, the paper currency is something which is equivalent to a fiat money. So the principles of trading in gold and silver does not apply while trading and exchanging gold and silver with paper currencies. So it becomes a normal sale, and then you can do the credit sale as well, and the quantity can vary in different forms. I think
perfect. Yes, it was a very good comprehensive answer, and we surely move to our next questions. We do have a couple of questions, so maybe like quickly, due to the time constraint, we will go to them. The second last question is like, what are the proportion of the companies that complies with these criteria? Like you have mentioned some comparison of IOFI, Dow Jones, KMI 30. So in your general observation, what are the proportion of the companies in most of the stock exchanges which comply to this criteria? And what are the efforts being made to basically make non-compliant companies to be compliant?
Right. First of all, it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I'll talk about Pakistan. The KMI 30 index. Basically, these are out of 550 or 600 companies, only 35 companies qualify under these screening criteria. What are the efforts being made to bring in more companies in that net? The second criteria, the debt to asset ratio, it was earlier 45%. Now they are tightening the control and they are bringing it down to 37%. So this is how the efforts are being made. Actually, the interesting part is that once if the company becomes Sharia compliant, their market prices goes up. That is the attraction basically. If a company strives, especially here in Pakistan, they have also offered a tax rebate for those companies which fall under the certain criteria of the screening, and they become Sharia compliant and they get a certificate from the Securities Commission. They get a tax rebate from the FBR. So these are the efforts which are being made in order to make companies more compliant, so people have a huge number of companies in the basket to invest in Sharia compliant avenues.
I think this kind of incentives we really would like to have from the regulators, from the government, and from the other supportive players. So like moving on to our last question is that when a normal investor goes to the market, how do they know that these criteria mentioned when at the time of investing? So, and how can we ask for those criteria from the stock exchange or from the regulatory bodies? I mean, is there any specific channel where they can find that, okay, these are the set of Sharia compliant companies, and then we can go ahead and invest in those companies?
On a lighter note, we are there to help them out. We
Okay.
screen stocks. Well, there are different indices. You have to subscribe these indices. KMI 30 is available in the Pakistan Stock Exchange website, whereas Dow Jones and IOFI, they don't allow. Different companies and different consulting companies do offer these services to the brokerage house, and they do the periodic screening on a quarterly basis. Whenever the quarter reports are issued, they review and they screen the stocks accordingly, and they come up with the results and share it with the relevant stakeholders.
Okay, so I think that we can still take one last question before just moving and to our concluding remarks. That what are the conditions from Sharia perspective to invest in different type of funds that falls under halal? For example, we have ETF and we have REITs, real estate investment trusts, and also then crowdfunding platforms are also there. So overall, the general Sharia ruling is or conditions. What are they?
The basic thing is that the core business activity. If I am a company, I'm floating my shares in the stock exchange, I need to ensure on my part internally have a Sharia department, have a compliance department, which basically screens my activity, my investments, my balance sheet, and my financials throughout the operations, and ensure that my company stays Sharia compliant. Once that certificate is available, I go in that platform with a certificate that my company is Sharia compliant, because these are the activities that has to be addressed internally within the company. So any company which offers its shares on the stocks has to be Sharia compliant and has to comply. Here in Pakistan, the Security Exchange Commission has basically laid down the basic criteria of a company to become a Sharia compliant company. And one of the basic thing which is important is that they have to have an internal Sharia department which assures that their activities, their operations stays all-time Sharia compliant.
Okay, perfect. Jazakallah khairan, and thank you so much, Mufti Saab. And I think that it was a wonderful session, and people really got some deep knowledge and a better understanding of our digital platform and specifically stock markets. So now we are moving towards our concluding remarks, and I would like to basically invite Mr. Sayyid Asif Zaman to basically have the concluding remarks. Thank you so much. Mr. Asif, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farooq. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Sayyid Asif Zaman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Alif Technology, and we are doing different things in Alif Technology over here. Basically, we have three main segments. We are doing, academia, consulting, and development of on fintech products. Looking at this today's topic, I see that a bright future of Islamic fintech is very bright, and so many fintech company and Islamic Sharia companies, financing companies are opening in these days, and across the globe. This is GCC and Middle East. You see so many companies are there, and one of the top companies like Ethics Crowd, which is today Mr. Umar Munshi have mentioned, and that then is Waheed, which is already about $25 million they have capitalized on that one, and there are CBX unit, Sharia compliant, this Obima Yelder. These are the companies which are in place. So what I foresee is that we have a very bright future in Islamic Sharia finance, and the integration of traditional banking with fintech model will take a lot more prominent role. The integration extend not only to RegTech and InsurTech and Islamic fintech with standardization of APIs, other things. And as per that record, we have that around that we have 170 Islamic banks and 80 regular banks that offer Islamic finance windows. So do we expect, and then Islamic finance is not been overwhelmingly welcomed. Not only the Islamic countries, non-Muslims are also investing in these products, Islamic Sharia products. And we see that in future, we see that lot of companies, the number of Islamic fintech will increase with a tremendous pace, and I fully expect that industry will grow in at least for the next 5 years, and we will be seeing more companies like Ethics Crowdfunding and this Waheed companies. They will be in place, and inshallah, and hopefully that this our aim at this Alif Technologies is to bring people and the platform together who are in fintech and especially specialize in Islamic Sharia matters. Like we have today invited Umar Munshi and Mr. Hassan Wakar also. So thank you very much from my side, and if there is some questions left over, we are working and trying to collaborate and make platforms together that people at different parts in the world, they are working in on fintech and other things like that. So if somebody have any question, if we were unable to answer this question now, surely will be answered in on the emails and other links we have already shared. So anybody have any question finally, and they can write down to us, and that's it. And thank you very much. Thank you very much, Omar Munshi, Hassan Wakar Sahab, and Farooq Sahab, and we hopefully will be organizing more of this kind of events in the future. So back to Dr. Farooq, and Farooq, thank you.
Okay, Jazakumullah khairan, and thank you so much, Mr. Asif, for concluding remarks. And I think that you also have also highlighted some of the general digital platforms over there in the market. There was one question: if Mufti Saab is around, I think that I can still take one more question. So that it was very interesting. So. How about the legality of forward contracts in Islam? Because in stock markets, we have seen like there are derivatives also, forward, futures, and options. And also there are different ways of trading stocks. So if Mufti Saab is around, I think that he can basically answer this question in a very quick manner, and then I will close it.
Basically, this is a very extensive topic on futures and forwards and options, things like that. There are Sharia instruments or Sharia alternatives available to an extent. There are certain limitations where we cannot do exactly an apple for an apple. The conventional options available, we cannot go for that. Yeah, but the Sharia closes options are available. Like for forward contracts, if we go and do a Salam contract for the forex transactions, if you want to hedge a exchange rate of dollars, so according to the Hanafi school, they do allow making a Salam contract in paper currency. Whereas other scholars disallow this, they don't allow to go into a forward contract in paper currencies as well. So they, in different jurisdictions, there are different instruments available. And yes, for future contracts, the vanilla product of future, hedging the products, the agri products, basically on a future date, we can go and do it on a Salam basis, which is very much permissible and was happening and was acceptable by the Sharia and allowed by the Prophet ﷺ when he migrated to Medina.
Okay, perfect. I think that with that, although like it's it's a very extensive session topic, and then 1 or 2 minutes will definitely not justify the answer as well, and it will be still remaining incomplete. But due to the time constraint, we have to basically close it. So before just closing this session, I would like to again thank all our respected speakers and also our participants. And I am really sorry for on my side and from Alif Technologies side if there was any shortcoming. There were some few disruptions, which I think that inshallah in the future we will take care of. And we will ensure that there will be no technical or other disruptions there. And we will be having a smooth session. So stay tuned because it's a webinar series, and inshallah we have planned a few programs aligned to that vision. Inshallah, we are going to basically bring the knowledge and expertise to the masses. And also in that sense, we have already developed the program, like I said in the beginning. So it is about crypto world demystified, and it will be on Saturdays only, so that like people will be able to take this program if they would like to know about crypto assets, that what are they, and from the research point of view, from the knowledge point of view, and from the investment and also trading point of view. They have so many issues, they have so many concerns. So this is a sharing session, a knowledge session, a program which is basically based on purely educational purpose. So for that, I think that it would be a good it would be a good program to have. And with that, please do follow us on our social media and different channels. And take care and stay safe and stay blessed. Jazakallahu khaira, and thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you very much.